Hello and welcome to Solo Booth Central, where Gamescom is shortly about to open up to the public, but we get to start an hour early. We just got to see a great match between Slivko and Bomber, and now we're going to hop directly into Game 3 between mOOnGLaDe and Grubby. In Game number 1, it was a really long, really epic back-and-forth game on Daybreak, where Grubby barely kept a couple of Nexuses alive. I mean, there were like 3 Nexuses down to 35 hit points, but with that really great control, re-walling his own Nexuses off the buildings, Grubby stayed alive and did a nice play in the late game. And then in game number 2, Grubby went for a 2-base Immortal Gateway push that mOOnGLaDe just stomped. So that's actually kind of an interesting shift from the usual PvZ. Generally, a lot of Protosses like to go for that late-term game. Actually, let's talk about that in a moment. Before that, let us introduce our players. In the top left corner, hailing from Australia, considered widely to be the best Australian player, it is mOOnGLaDe. And down in the bottom right, one of the most heralded and respected players in all of gaming, it is going to be Grubby. I mean, Grubby is just so good at StarCraft 2. Warcraft 3 champion 1,000,001 times. I think over 40 gold places. So sick. But I was talking a little bit about the PvZ matchup and how Protosses do like to go for kind of a long-term game. They like to go for some multi-base play, the big maxed Stalker, Sentry, Immortal Army pushes in the mid-game, get the Colossus Templar later on. But if all else fails, Protosses have a tendency to fall back on that 2-base timing push, that Immortal Sentry timing push that gives Zerg so much trouble. Weirdly, though, mOOnGLaDe, having crushed that so badly, now is suddenly putting the pressure back on Grubby, saying, well, you actually have to play a really long, really straight-up game. And as a result, Grubby's going to have certainly a long game ahead of him. Grubby now, checking out the natural expansion, nothing too out of the ordinary. Map is Ohana. Very much so expect Grubby to de-emphasize the Colossus in the early game and emphasize the Blink Stalker, as it's a much more efficient way to manage this base on the right and this base on the left, the opposite-sided maps that Zerg love to take so much. Grubby's going to do his usual circle around. He went for the Nexus first. Will he get the pylon block down? Does he even want to get it down? It's unclear at this point, and there Grubby's actually going to let it go down and head straight up to the third base as his probe pulls back to hang out at the Xel'Naga Watchtower for a little bit. Now mOOnGLaDe, on the other hand, ooh, this is an interesting, never mind, that's not interesting at all. He just extractor trick to get his queen started to be at 19 out of 18. I actually thought he was going to be throwing down his gas at 3 minutes. That's something we haven't really seen since the beta days when Protosses were going 3-gate expand and no one really felt comfortable taking early bases, but all that is a thing of the past. Grubby now is well past that 18 supply by favoring building his second pylon before this cannon. Look at how late that cannon is, and oh god, mOOnGLaDe sees it. He's actually just rushing down with all these Zerglings, and I think they actually are going to get up unless Grubby sends a probe there right away. Oh god, oh, having three Zerglings in the main at the start of the game is the worst. Oh man, oh Grubby. Actually, these Zerglings might just go directly for the cannon. No, they're going to go right past the cannon. Was too far gone. And now Grubby has 3 Zerglings in his main base. This is just an atrocious position to be in as Grubby. All this mining time being lost. Grubby does see that that third base is down right now. A pretty standard opening for the Zerg player. Has lost the probe as well. And Grubby's just having to spend all this mining time. I mean, just sending one probe here to do the block would have been more than enough, but now Grubby's has to play a little bit face up. He's actually going to be building 2 Zealots. Otherwise, it's a little bit of a waste. If he just goes 1 Zealot and then straight into Stalker, that's a very odd way to make use of that gateway. It would have been preferable to just build the Cybernetics core right off the bat. But no, it looks like Grubby's actually just going to go straight for these Zerglings and not do anything more with the gateway. Ugh. Again, a little bit of a tenuous position. This Eunice lost tab totally doesn't reveal how tragic things have been for Grubby, but still really representative of the excellent control we've seen from mOOnGLaDe, losing nothing, getting the perfect scout. He doesn't even need to suicide Overlords at this point. This game is very much so in mOOnGLaDe's favor. At the front, we see Grubby going for the Sentry defense setup. If he had a few extra minerals, he may want to be starting that +1 attack, but instead 6-minute assimilators going down. Things are getting a little bit thrown off kilter for Grubby. Meanwhile, back in camp mOOnGLaDe, he has started the 6-minute double extractor. the very common timing in Zerg versus Protoss, allowing him to get up just the right amount of gas for upgrades and maybe roaches if he needs that sort of defense up. 3 links still in the base. Will they actually catch this probe? And it looks like, yes, he actually sends in the 2 Zerglings, leaves 1 out. Nice move by mOOnGLaDe. mOOnGLaDe's doing an excellent little job being a total jerk at the start of the game. This is like the most frustrating thing in the universe. This is why players like MC like going Forge first, just because having Zerglings in the main base is so annoying. If you have a really well-timed build, a really well-thought-out build, it is easily thrown off by even a small number of Zerglings in the base. Evolution Chamber, Zergling speed going down first. It looks like mOOnGLaDe yet again setting himself up for a Mutalisk-based mid-game. I would honestly not even be that surprised to see. Whoa! Whoa! This is cool. Look at this, 7 minutes and 20 seconds for a 4th hatchery. That's so early. 4th hatchery before layer. Sick. Is he actually going to get Zergling attack upgrade before that as well? He is. Whoa! I mean, the Roach Warren is going down, but it is absolutely not going to be a Roach-based mid-game. He wants to go for those Mutalisks. He's trying to set it up, and these Zerglings are still alive in the main base. He just can't get it. This is like watching an episode of Roadrunner. Just continuing to circle around and around. Grubby's build completely face up, 28 Zerglings in production. I mean, if you're mOOnGLaDe, you know exactly what you're up against. You're up against a player who's going to be relying on sentry energy, force fields. Why not make those speed Zerglings early on? Why not just shut down this 4th base? Excuse me, the 3rd base from Grubby. mOOnGLaDe is just playing magnificently, and I can't believe how early that macro hatch is. That is just so freaking early. Grubby, though, staying calm, not doing anything too out of control, getting his +2, getting his blink. Going to have to rely on some excellent control there from the Stalkers. Oh, gosh, this is going to get shut down immediately. Grubby's forced to cancel. Grubby may even be forced to build 2 more gateways before he ends up taking his expansion. Having just 4 is quite tenuous of a defense. Layer almost done, +1 almost done. This is a perfect transition timing for mOOnGLaDe. He has 2 significant options. 1, going for the Mutalisks, but 2, he can get +2 attack, which will really bolster a Baneling transition, which is a little bit more of a later step in the PvZ metagame. And now mOOnGLaDe taking down these destructible rocks, setting himself up just brilliantly for these multi-pronged attacks in the mid and late game. Grubby would love to be able to wall off, but right now the game is absolutely in mOOnGLaDe's control court. We see there glial reconstitution. Geyser's extremely late from mOOnGLaDe. That's one of the reasons he was able to get up this early hatch. Once he does his rock killing job, he's going to wait for this Nexus to get just a little bit farther down before instantly barreling down the front. And that is a nice grab for Grubby. And look at this instant response by mOOnGLaDe. Jumps right up the ramp. And oh, Grubby does not want to play in that sort of lag. There's the 1-letter conversation between these two. Grubby barely able to wall off his ramp with those 2 Stalkers. I mean, Grubby is very, very tenacious about having the right settings, the right environment to play in. mOOnGLaDe already getting close to that maxed at 11-minute play. But one of the reasons he isn't maxed is that he's been spending most of his resources on Zerglings, and that is the real key to deflecting this. Grubby, look, oh wow, brilliant move! Didn't want to waste any time at the robotics facility building too many observers. Has 1 out at the front, but now with these sweeping Phoenixes, he can clearly see what mOOnGLaDe is up to. Grubby's going to need some incredible control if he wants to stay alive. Right now, he does have 2 photon cannons, an excellent wall of gateways, the perfect angle to be able to set this up, and there's a brilliant wall off. Couple of those Stalkers blink back. But killing off this warp gate at the top left is mOOnGLaDe's main concern, and now he's able to step in. There are 2 pylons there, but he can kill off both of them and completely block off this gateway reinforcement production. Grubby right now looking pretty good in his defense, but mOOnGLaDe is continuing to terrorize absolutely everything. 4th base also going up on the mini-map for mOOnGLaDe. Zerglings trying to swing around the back, but now that most of the Zerglings have been killed off, whoa! mOOnGLaDe comes in with a tremendous reinforcement, but Grubby is trading in these battles so well. The danger for Grubby, though, the amount of workers that have been killed off. Grubby desperately trying to re-blink, re-get at a good angle. Though he might kill off this small attack force, there's a lot more Zerglings being rallied for. 22 Zerglings, both players getting very, very low in supply in the unit station. 52 probes. Tons have been killed off. 17 have been annihilated, but Grubby manages to hold well. And there's 2 sentries here. What a play from Grubby. He does miss these 2 Zerglings, but he is clearly prepared for any of the counter plays that mOOnGLaDe could be throwing at him. And Grubby, in an amazing defense, in an absolutely amazing defense, has managed to pull himself into a good spot. mOOnGLaDe could have set up a late transition by taking these gas geysers. He could have gotten the Mutalisk transition going, but no, mOOnGLaDe has overcommitted to this Ling Roach aggression, the classic Stefano-style mistake. Sure, these maxed army pushes are so easy to get good wins against solid players, but against someone playing as solidly as Grubby, it's going to be a tough bout. Again, for any of you just tuning in, we got the chance to see the first 2 games of Bomber Slivko, where Bomber did successfully win 2-0. We didn't see the first 2 games of mOOnGLaDe Grubby, as those were played concurrently with the Bomber Slivko games. However, holy crap, has it been a close series, and mOOnGLaDe continuing the theme by barreling down Grubby's front door. And again, the top left gateway is the big target, but Grubby's riding out to meet him, Lord of the Rings style, sends a nice block down on that gateway, and there's the grab, snatches up a good chunk of all those Ling Roach. The crowd loves it, don't you, crowd? I see you there behind me. And continuing to throw a lot of Ling Roach down, Grubby is looking very strong to be able to deflect this. Running a little bit low on force fields, mOOnGLaDe continues to try to press his way forward. After a very tough, bitter loss in Game 2, Grubby is playing brilliantly in this match. mOOnGLaDe was in total control throughout the early game. But gosh, has Grubby ever pulled an incredible miracle defense to blink forward, picking off a lot of them roaches. You see Grubby having rebuilt this gateway at the corner for the 3rd time up at the natural expansion Colossus in production. This is an extremely defensive play from Grubby. He's basically saying, well, if you're going for that huge Ling Roach mid-game, you don't have the good transition to Infestor planned. You don't have a lot of options to go for Spire. So I'm going to sit passively. I'm going to get 2-3 Colossus up, and then I'm going to shove. At the same time, though, we see mOOnGLaDe's money has been very high. This is not just because his macro's been slipping, but it's also because these geysers were really late. Look at this geyser just being mined. Both these geysers have only just started. mOOnGLaDe would have loved to have had those up earlier. He could have thrown down 9, 10 Infestors right now. And suddenly Grubby would have been in an awkward spot with an overly Colossus focus at this point. But right now the game looks very much so in Grubby's control. He's adding on 4 more gateways in the main base. It's going to be a 3 base timing push from Grubby, who is already at 3-0 upgrades. mOOnGLaDe only at 1-0, just now only adding on the 2-0 upgrade. Oh gosh, mOOnGLaDe was looking so excellent in the opening game. Just absolutely brilliant, but during the attack just didn't upgrade, didn't expand, didn't do anything else. And now Grubby's going to happily take down these destructible rocks on his own. Uh-oh, doing some nice zoning. The Roaches are going to try to get out. Grubby ain't going to have anything of it. The Roaches try to sneak away, but Grubby chases them down. And with the Colossus out, another Colossus has joined onto the field. The reinforcement gateways are wrapping up, and now with these pylons being planted in the center, Grubby's moving out at a time where ordinarily the Zerg would be gearing up to go for Hive. But mOOnGLaDe isn't even close to that point yet. mOOnGLaDe's actually just going to sacrifice this expansion. He's going to let it die, hasn't even run the drones. Infestor pops out. Will he even get a shot off? It looks like nope, gets roasted instantly. A counterattack attempt from mOOnGLaDe, but look at the force fields from Grubby, having an answer at every point. mOOnGLaDe now has gone into late defense mode. He hasn't even begun the Hive yet. He's just trying to secure himself on 3 bases. Grubby's clearing out his expansions. Zergling at the left. Probe might be able to plant down this expansion. No, the probe manages to run right into the Zergling. Grubby steps into the middle of the map. mOOnGLaDe's enormous Ling Infestor army doesn't have a good angle. 1 fungal growth goes down, but it's a bit of a waste. Oh, mOOnGLaDe attacking Grubby at a very weak angle. A couple of force fields go down, letting mOOnGLaDe know he needs to pull back and get into a better spot. 2 Infestors getting nabbed right at that peak. With these pair of Colossus, it's so difficult for mOOnGLaDe to get a good angle. He's now wrapping around very nicely. Couple of force fields land, but not quite enough to get a good angle at the Roaches. But Grubby doesn't even need a good angle. His army far too powerful. And after an extremely tense opening game, Grubby is just barreling down the front door. mOOnGLaDe trying to reinforce with roaches, trying to remake Zerglings. A pair of infested Terrans go down. The Colossus, well-controlled Grubby, pulling back nicely into this choke. mOOnGLaDe is getting decimated after that early game aggression. And Grubby also successfully pulling back his Colossus. 25 kills each. Good game. Grubby manages to take the win, helping to put him already at 1